Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Danielle, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys not only how I prepare Sunday dinner and what I made on this particular Sunday, but also how I meal prep and plan for the week. We are a family of 6, so it just pays to be proactive and stay on top of meal planning, and it just makes it a lot easier to save money throughout the week so we're not eating out too much. So the first thing that I do is just take inventory of everything that we have on hand. So I went to the refrigerator and made a list of all the things that we had in there already that were perishable, as well as the things that we had run out of, like milk, eggs, things like that. And then I also did the same thing in the pantry as well as in the freezer. And the next thing for me after making a list is to try and make corresponding meals. So as you can see, I have chicken tenderloins, as well as a few different kinds of beans and shrimp. So I just try to figure out what meals I can make with those items. So for instance, with the shrimp, I'm gonna make shrimp lo mein. With the chicken tenderloins, I'm gonna make chicken and wild rice soup. And with the black beans, I'm gonna make black bean and corn tacos. For any ingredients that I'm not quite sure about what to do with, for instance, kidney beans, I just go to Pinterest and type in kidney bean recipes, and then once I find one that I feel like I have most of the ingredients for, or I feel like it's easy enough for me to make on a weeknight, then I just save it to one of my boards, add it to my list, and figure out what ingredients, if any, I need to get from the store to make the meal. So here I have all of my meals for the week listed out. I like to plan out breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and that way I know exactly what I need to get at the store. So since I had everything already listed, I was able to create a meal around each of the proteins and then match each of those meals up with a vegetable. And for me, what works best is planning out each of those meals inside of the Notes app on my phone, and that way I can just check things off as we eat them. And I just choose what I'm gonna cook each day based on what I'm in the mood for and what's still left on the list. Because the weather is so cold right now, I'm not really doing my own shopping, so I will either order groceries through the Shipt app or Instacart, and I decide where I'm gonna order based on who has the best prices on the items that I need that week. And while I was looking up recipes on Pinterest, I decided to also search for Sunday dinner ideas, and that is where I figured out that I wanted to make meatloaf. So I also added the ingredients for that to my list, and that's what I'm going to show you guys how to make today. So it took about an hour and a half to get my groceries, and then it was time to start cooking. So the first thing I'm going to do is just add some olive oil to a pan, as well as some onion and green pepper. And if you don't like those, it's completely optional. You can just leave it out. You can skip this step altogether. I bought 2 packs of ground beef, but I was only intending to use 1 for this meal. So while the onions and green peppers were sauteing, I decided to break down the other one so that it would be easier to use for future meals. Then once the veggies were pretty close to being done, I also went ahead and added in some minced garlic. Then I just turned that off and let it sit while I started to work on the meat mixture. I had some old bread laying around, so I just used these deli rolls. I ended up using 2 of these. All I did was rip them into small pieces and then added enough milk to moisten them and make sure they were completely soaked. And because this is a kid-friendly task, I decided to let Cody help me out since she had been begging to help me do something. And this is something that she could easily do with minimal instruction. Then I cracked in 2 eggs, gave it a final mix, and then added the entire mixture to the meat. Then I added in my seasonings, and I used garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, garlic and herb seasoning, complete seasoning, and salt. And I didn't measure this, I just kind of eyeballed it. And one way that I feel like works is if you smell your meat mixture after you make it, you can kind of tell if it has enough seasoning by the smell of it. So I'll usually do that. And then I also added in the vegetables, and then because I didn't want to get my nails in it, I mixed it with a spoon. Then I just turned it out onto a lined baking sheet and molded it into a loaf. Then I popped it into the oven on 400 for about 30 minutes. While it was cooking, I went ahead and boiled some potatoes until they were tender, and then drained them and added butter, milk, salt, and pepper, and just mixed them up with a whisk until I was happy with the consistency as well as the flavor. After 30 minutes, I pulled the meatloaf out and then made a glaze to go on top using ketchup, brown sugar, garlic powder, onion powder, and pepper. Gave it all a good mix and then tasted it to make sure that the flavor was good. And then I put about half of that on top of the meatloaf and saved the other half for later. I threw it back in the oven for another 30 minutes, and while it was cooking the second time, I went ahead and started on the Brussels sprouts. Once I got them all chopped up, I went ahead and rinsed and drained them. Then I added them to a pan with olive oil, garlic, and seasonings. So after cooking for about 15 minutes, they were ready and good to go. Then I pulled the meatloaf out again, added the second half of the glaze, and then put it back in the oven under the broiler on low. And I just let it stay in there until the glaze was sticky. So this was Sunday dinner. And then I also wanted to include an easy recipe that you could make using the leftovers. So it's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to talk through the whole thing. I'll just let you guys watch what I did. And that's it for this video. Hopefully you found something useful in it. You learned something from it and you're able to start to implement some of these things into your Sunday to make it a little bit easier to meal plan and get your week started. I'll definitely be coming out with a lot more content like this because this is actually what I do on a daily basis. So it's just a little easier for me to make this kind of content. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.